Over here, Mary.
Okay, we will call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. And if we can stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
of the United States of
to the
America,
republic,
to the republic
of America,
for which it stands,
for which it stands,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
just for all.
All right. Thank you. Madam Secretary, if you would call the roll.
Mr. Brooks?
I'm here.
Okay. Mr. Carter?
Here,
Ms. Martin here. Mrs. Peasky? Here. Mrs. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Robleski?
here,
And Mrs. Washington?
Here. Thank you. If we can recite the Baldwin Community Schools mission statement. Preparing students for
the promise of
Students for the promise of tomorrow.
Awesome. The purpose of the open board meeting. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. So we'll move on to the consent agenda items. We have approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 18th, 2020, approval of the bills to be paid, general check funds starting at 74171 to 74197, food service account check number 5034. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items? Been moved by Mr. Brooks,
support,
I'll support.
supported by Mr. Robleski. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Presentations?
We do not have any presentations tonight.
Okay, well, we'll move on to principal reports. Mr. Mangum, would you like to go first?
If I can hit my unmute button. There we go. You guys all hear me okay? Yeah,
Yes.
we're in the full swing of.
Yes, we can.
Okay. We're in the middle of online learning. You know, our participation numbers have been going up. One thing that we instituted at the elementary school is we week one we started a outreach and engagement team utilizing our student support specialist and some of our intervention folks to make sure that we're reaching out to students and to those students that might be having difficulty with connections or with devices and things like that, and trying to overcome barriers with those folks. And we're starting to see some real positive data from that, right? And so we're seeing increases of anywhere from 5 to 27%, depending on the class, right? The grade level that we're working with in those student participation and attending the online sessions. So that's been something that's working really well for us. That team meets every Friday and then looks at the data and then kind of puts forth the plan on how we're going to reach out to those students that are still having difficulties. And so that's kind of where we're at right now, and continuing to make sure that we're trying to meet our students and our parents' needs.
Offhand, would you happen to know what grade levels where you see the lower turnout or the lower turn-in?
Yeah, I believe, Mr. Heitmeyer, do you have those that I can pull it up too? That data.
I don't have them right in front of me, but you might want to highlight
Yeah, I was
third
just
grade and
curious.
the thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at fourth grade and fifth grade in my particular building were the ones that were struggling the most when we initially started. They both have increased, but that's the area that we've been focusing in on more. I think, in our first week in fourth grade, for example, we were like at 36% online participation, and through meeting with those folks, we were up at the last check was last Friday at 53%, and then fifth grade was like 56%, and now we're up to 61. Those are the students that are connecting online on a consistent basis, and we can consider that at least 2 times a week, but most are connecting daily.
Okay,
And
great,
some of our
thank
other-
you. I just
Yeah.
want to I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just, if we look at third grade, we're at about 81% participation. Second grade's right at about 70, and first grade is also at about 70. And this again is for those students that are connecting consistently online. We also have students that are engaging asynchronously, and so those numbers go up a little bit when we start looking at those students that are turning in work.
Okay, thank you. That's not bad. I just want to remind everybody, if you're not talking, if you can have your phones muted. Thank you. Were any other questions or comments for the elementary principal's report?
Mrs. Washington, I'm going to try to share
I'd like to know.
chart real quick.
I think Mr. Carter has a question, Mr. Heitmeyer.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Carter.
Of the kids you got participating, do you keep record or know how well they're doing while they're online participating in the class? Did you hear the question?
Mr. Mangum, I
Hello?
think the question.
Bruce, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was asking
Well-
you, of the kids that are participating in the online training, do you recognize how well they're doing with their class?
Yeah. So the teachers have been giving us reports on how things are going within the classroom, and week 1 it was kind of learning how to be an online student. Week 2 we got a little bit better, and now that we're entering into week 4, the kids are getting it. They're saying that they're getting it. They're understanding how to do the online learning, and we're getting really good participation. And I think the other piece there too is the teachers are starting to learn about what works and what doesn't work in that online venue, because it's kind of new to all of us. And so they're becoming really pretty well versed together as that is their classroom space. And so, everybody's kind of growing into this.
Okay. Now, of the percentage of kids that you got participating, how many of them have switched to other schools?
The ones that are participating have not been switching to other schools. Those are
Right.
still with us, right?
Right. But how many students have we lost to other schools?
I don't have those
the
numbers
elementary.
right now, but I can get those for you.
Okay. Because I do know I know 10 kids, about 10 kids that I know of that are not having any kind of learning at all because they weren't able to get on the internet, or their parents weren't able to get them the supplies that they needed, or they just not doing it, helping the kids.
Right, and that's where the outreach team has been working with those families. Like I said, Mr. Fournier has been reaching out to those folks and trying to get them in. We've had folks in the building working with him, and he's been making house visits to kind of help them overcome some of those barriers. And then we've had, like I said, our intervention teachers as well, making phone calls and kind of working with them and trying to brainstorm different ways to kind of overcome some of those barriers.
Well, I know I have 7 nieces and nephews of mine that haven't been reached by anyone.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I would like to.
And one of them was. We were talking to one of them today, and he said that he haven't been able to get anything done, and he decided he could just either take his kids to Big Rapids or Walkerville.
Well, the progress sounds like what we've been doing is the families that we are aware of that we are trying to provide some intervention. So maybe these were families, Mr. Carter, that didn't reach out to let anyone know that they were having any difficulties, or did you bring, or bringing this information to Mr. Heitmeyer to let him know that there were families out there, and then we could have gotten contact with those people?
Well, we just found out today.
Well, we can work on that tomorrow. If Mr. Mangum, if you or Mr. Fournier could reach out to Mr. Carter and
Absolutely.
find out some names, we can work on that. I think that this is on the screen. I can't see all my computer says is that I'm presenting. So hopefully on the screen is a chart that shows where we were the first Friday and where we were as of last Friday with participation in the elementary. So we're definitely on the upswing. Hopefully that you can see that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mangum, if I were to share the nameless document that we went over earlier, would you want to talk about that? Because I think that would provide some more information to the board about what we've been doing.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
I'm going to pull that up. Oh, nope, I don't like that. Hang on. I'll go with this. Oh, hang on. Darn it. Okay. So go ahead, Mr. Mangum. It should be showing now, and you can explain a little bit about that, how that's working.
So this would be an example of like first grade, and we've taken the names of the students off from this document, and we've also taken the names of the teacher off from this. But you can see that we have participation levels of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5s, right? And when we look at that, what we're looking at is those students that are blue, those 1s and 2s are engaging, and this is what we look at every Friday, right? Who are those students? And we look at all of our students. We're going through our entire roster, and we're looking at who are those students that are connecting to the classroom via online or via asynchronously, right? And so those students that are 1s and 2s are connecting online in a consistent fashion. Now the 1s are there every day. The 2s are there, we're saying, at least a couple of times a week. So 2 to 3 times a week. So fairly consistently. The 3s are those students that are participating asynchronously. Maybe they don't have Wi-Fi, but they have picked up materials. They're doing the work, and they're having some connection with us, either via submitting their work or they're having contact with parents. Those students in yellow are students that we know came in to pick up the materials. That would be our level 4 students, right? And they've come in and they picked up materials, but maybe we haven't heard much from them. And then we have those students that are 5. Those are students that maybe they didn't come in and pick up materials. We haven't heard much from them. And so those 4s and those 5s, right? Those folks that we're still not hearing much from. Those are the ones that outreach and engagement team is really engaging in those phone calls in. And so that's where we're really focusing our efforts on with, like I said, our student support specialists and our interventionists to kind of reach out to those families and problem solve. You know, what is it that they're struggling with from you know, preventing them from engaging in the work. And so, you know, I know that countless hours on the phone, because I see the folks on the phone with them constantly reaching out to those families and trying to make those connections with those folks. And again, this is being updated weekly. Every Friday we get together and we're keeping track of all the conversations that we're having with family. We're also tracking the movement. So are they moving from yellow to green? Are they moving from yellow to blue, right? Are we moving the reds into those green and blue categories? If we're having trouble reaching those families, what are our next steps as far as, you know, how do we need to do home visits? What are those next pieces so that we're doing outreach with all of our students and trying to outreach to those families and get them, you know, connected to the learning that's happening at the school.
That's a great intervention plan. I mean, you all have been busy over there.
So I have a quick question based on that chart.
Yes, sir.
Now, the participation, it looks like third grade, I think you said 80%, first and second grade around 70% or higher. Now, does that include those who are perhaps participating with the outreach team, or are these just the consistent students, the ones and the twos?
When I'm talking about those numbers, we're really looking at those consistent students that are actually engaging, right? Those outreach folks, if they're yellow, we're not considering them consistent yet, and wouldn't consider them, same thing with red, right? Those are until they're consistently working with their teacher, I'm not counting them into those percentages.
Okay, so the 20% that you, or the 30%ers are in those groups, the 3 through 5?
Yes. Yep. And then
Okay.
also, you know, those that may potentially have dropped. And that's another piece too, that we're trying to track now and try to figure that other piece there.
Okay.
We've had a lot of students come into, I mean, we had 4 come in today, new students register with us and enroll with us. So it's been really interesting with the enrollment piece, because we've had drops, but we've had a lot of enrollments too. And it's been very, very busy in the front office with all of the enrollments and people coming in. So
Right.
yeah, until they are in those green and blue categories, we're still considering them as not being a consistent student and continuing to do that outreach in those percentages.
Now, like our teachers that we hire and the ones that leave, you kind of get an exit reason for why they're leaving. Are you doing that with the students as well? Or speaking with the parents, why perhaps?
Yeah, I believe we are keeping track of all of that information with the, we're not doing a formal one, but as we're getting those pieces, we are jotting those things down. Yes, sir. But we probably could be a little more formal on that. That would probably be a place to move to. Absolutely.
Okay. And, well, I'll ask my question later. Thank you. Thank you for that information.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Good questions. Thanks for explaining that chart too. Any other questions, comments?
One more
Okay,
question.
we'll move on to second. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
Yes. How many individuals, adults, do you have on that intervention team? The outreach
Currently,
and engagement team.
yeah, currently we're trying to utilize our interventionists and then also our student support specialists. So currently we're using 4 people right now, in addition to other duties that they have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to secondary. Mr. Cornwell?
Well, good evening,
Are you
everybody.
ready, sir? Good
So
evening.
I'll echo a lot of what Mr. Mangum said. But first thing I wanted to do, I wanted to give Trent, our tech guy here, a shout out. He was in at 8 this morning to rewire the high school main office. We switched around the front desk and gave a little bit of a waiting room space, and he was there all day rewiring things. So a big thank you to him and the maintenance guys for doing that. Our participation numbers are also going up. I'm going to turn my video off. I'm starting to get a little slow. I'm borrowing Wi-Fi while I'm waiting a marching band tonight. The participation numbers at the secondary school are going up. The first week we were at about a 47% average. This week we're up to about a 68% average so far. Our highest class average so far has been 91% participation. Today we had 4 classes that were over the 70% mark. And I realized after I did the calculations that our low numbers are actually our junior and senior classes on their CTE days. So these numbers are a little askew because they're on our roster, but they're actually at CTE on some of those days. We are going to work on a plan to bring students in October for some benchmark testing. I'm guessing Mr. Heitmeyer will talk about that a little bit as we start planning for those days. And then finally, I got to sit in on 14 of the 17 classrooms in the last 2 days. And online learning is a very different experience, but our students are doing great. Our teachers are doing great. The engagement that I watched yesterday and today was a whole different level than I saw last year in the physical classroom. So that was kind of exciting to see.
I agree.
And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I'll try to do as well as Mr. Mangum did.
Yes, sir. Can you repeat
Any
those
questions?
numbers for me? You said the first weeks you said a 47% average, and then now it's around 68. But you mentioned some other numbers there, 90%, 80%, or
Yep,
70%.
we have our daily participation. I have it broken down by grade level. On yesterday, our 9th graders had 91% participation. 10th graders were 86% participation. And then today, 8, 9, 10, and 11th graders were all over the 70% mark for participation. So we're seeing a trend upward.
And you made some comments about juniors and seniors. How are they doing?
They're doing well. They have the way our schedule is set up on Tuesdays and Fridays, our 5th, 6th, and 7th hour classes are meeting synchronously with their teacher. Our juniors and seniors that are participating in CTE are technically don't have a class with one of our teachers at that time, but they're still on the list. So I realized today that my numbers are a little off. I've got about a dozen students that I'm counting as not participating, but they're actually participating at CTE, just not on our rosters. So I've got some adjusting on my count to do, which the numbers there will go up.
How many students do we have at CTE?
We've got about a dozen or so right now. We had 2 or 3 more added yesterday and today.
Okay. Thank you.
And I know we had a few students that didn't go to CTE this year because they were concerned with the face-to-face with students from all of our ESD schools. They were more comfortable doing online things with us. So we have them in some different Edmentum classes and other elective classes that we could.
Mr. Cornwell, I have the average versus date graph up. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure, I can talk about this real briefly. I think if I could have gotten this to work and actually had each day on the calendar like it was on my spreadsheet, it'd look a lot better. The one thing I'll point out though is those lowest days. You can kind of see there's a climb and then a dip and then a climb and then a dip and a climb and a dip. Those tend to be our Fridays. Last Friday was a pretty good day, but we generally have had rises all week, and then Fridays we have a little bit of a slip. One of the things though that I noticed as I was calculating these today, our percentages, so like our 6th grade today, we had 67% participation. And of that 67%, those are kids that are either in the virtual class or on the phone with their teacher. The other 33%, it's really only accounting at this point for, it's about 10 kids. And Mr. Fricky and Miss Miller are working with Mrs. Lewis, and they're probably in contact with 8 out of the other 10 kids if the teacher isn't in contact with them. So similar to the elementary schools team, Miss Lewis is kind of spearheading that for us at the secondary, and Mr. Fricky and Miss Bernadine Miller, they're contacting kids, seeing what's going on, and being that go-between for them. So those numbers, I think, have climbed because of those contacts.
Mr. Cornwell, just a quick question. So the kids who are doing the Edmentum, are they kind of numbers skewed like the same students that are involved in CTE?
Well, our
Or are
Edmentum
you able to
students,
count those?
yeah, we count those. Our Edmentum students are they're placed with one of our teachers for an hour, and that teacher is monitoring their progress during that time period. So for instance, if I'm teaching an Edmentum course, I have like 5th hour that I have all those students who are in that Edmentum period for that day and time that I'm keeping track of, checking their Edmentum progress, being in touch with them. So they're on the attendance roll just like everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cornwell,
Yes.
can you remind me again what an Admentum course looks like or what that is?
Sure. So Edmentum is the third-party vendor that we've contracted with. I don't know how long we've been with them. I know we had them last year. They've kind of changed names a little bit.
Okay.
So Edmentum offers a pretty full catalog of secondary classes that are available to students in Michigan. And we've used it this year. All of our, I think, freshmen, I could be wrong, I think freshmen are taking a health course in Edmentum. So we've assigned them all to that class. Edmentum has a semester-long curriculum that students work through on their own pace. They work through a lesson and then they take a mastery test, and they can't necessarily move on until they complete that mastery test with an 80% or better. And then the next section opens up and they repeat the process. And our teacher kind of monitors that progress and helps out as best they can.
Okay, so are these like elective courses?
95, 98% of our students that are taking Edmentum are taking them as elective courses, yes.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a couple that are doing some credit recovery things, but that's few and far between.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one more question for both principals.
Yes.
How are our numbers, and how is the learning going for our special ed students?
In the secondary building, the participation numbers for special ed students, I think we are probably, if we're not at 100%, we are pretty close to 100%. Most of that is in part to our special ed staff who they're on the phone. They are in Google Meets all day, every day. I know I interrupted Miss Buck today to ask her a question, and she was on the phone with a family working through some problems. Their participation in class, the actual classroom itself, I think it varies by student, but I know the contact between teacher and student has been outstanding.
Yeah, very, very similar at the elementary school. Ms. Knapp has been incredible in taking on and is there very early in the morning till she's usually there until the evening. Sometimes even I'll be checking the doors before I head out, and she's still there, and she's reaching out to folks and trying to make sure that she's getting out to every one of our students. And then our support folks from the ISD have been out too, working with our students and reaching and making sure that students are getting those services as well. But again, it's going to vary by student, and we're just going to continue to reach out to those kids and try to be creative in ways to make sure that we're meeting those needs.
Is Ms. Knapp the Lone Ranger in the elementary, or is there someone else helping out? Or
Currently, she is. The position is still open, and we're looking, and we're making phone calls to see if there are other people that might be interested in helping us out with that. And but currently, she is still the Lone Ranger at the elementary school.
thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Cornwell? Okay, thank you, Mr. Cornwell. Okay, get back to my agenda. Well, here we have open communications. If there's anyone from the audience, our virtual audience. Okay, I see that there are no comments at this time. So this is where we will have our educational review. Do we have anybody in the waiting area?
I I don't recognize one of the phone numbers, but who has a number that ends in 00?
Maybe that could be the family. Do we know if this was a request for closed session?
I believe the answer is yes. I know that they have the login information and everything.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is then I'll make a motion that we enter into closed session at 6:33 for educational review of student 10030. I'll need a motion to enter into closed session.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I need a board member to make a motion to enter into closed session.
I'll introduce
I make a
motion we
motion.
enter into closed session. I'll introduce a motion to go into closed session.
So that
Support.
sounds like Mrs. Peasky and Mrs. Williams.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why I'll do it. Mrs. Peasky motion, and is that okay if we just have Mrs. Williams to support it?
That's fine. Support.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Is the family here? at 7:06.
Yes.
Okay, so what we will do here to make sure we're well within where we need to be, is there a motion regarding student 10030?
I make a motion that student number 10030 is reinstated, contingent upon Mr. Heitmeyer and the school staff, and also wording to include an acceptable tolerance level of his behavior that he and his parent would be responsible for versus the school. Was that too long?
Well, I think the contingent would be the GS2 enrollment.
Yes, but also the zero tolerance of behavior for both he and his parent to understand.
We'll need to clean that up just a little bit, Mr. Robleski.
I make a motion that student number 10030 is returned back. Its expel is lifted, contingent upon Mr. Heitmeyer's recommendations.
Which are,
Enrollment into G.
I think that's the cleanup that Mrs. Washington wanted. Just end it there.
Okay.
My internet is really, really slow, so I did not hear a complete motion, and my apologies. If it can be repeated one more time.
I recommend student number 10030 can be returned to school contingent upon Mr. Heitmeyer's recommendations.
Can we make sure we get it in the minutes what the recommendation that Mr. Heitmeyer has made?
We will do that.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion that was made by Mr. Robleski?
Second.
second.
Rock, paper, scissors, who was that?
That was me, Miss Williams.
Okay, Mrs. Williams. All right, Mrs. Williams. Thank you, Mrs. Williams. So it was motion by Mr. Robleski, second by Mrs. Williams. Madam Secretary, can we please do a roll call vote?
Mr. Brooks,
Aye.
Mr. Carter,
Aye.
Martin, I. Mrs. Peaky,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Robleski,
Aye.
and Mrs. Washington.
Aye. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Motion is carried. So Mr. Heitmeyer, we're gonna have Ms. Dukes to reach out to you tomorrow
Sounds
for
good.
further discussion.
Yep.
Ms. Dukes, were you able to hear that? So call Mr.
Yeah.
Heitmeyer tomorrow at the central office. Okay.
Okay.
Young man, are you still on the phone with us?
Yes.
Okay, so you've heard the decision of the board. So, we have an expectation that you would, uphold your end of your responsibility. We want you to get an education as a district. That's our job, is to educate kids. and families, and it's your responsibility to work hard to make sure that you receive what it is that we're giving you. So I want to wish you good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for attending tonight.
Is he done?
You are all set. Just get in touch with me at the central office tomorrow. You guys,
Okay.
you guys do not have to stay on the line any longer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Dear Jesus.
Someone needs to go on mute.
So if you're not talking, I want to remind everybody, please to mute their phones. So we have discussion items now, Mr. Heitmeyer.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Not a lot to discuss tonight. I'll just give you a little bit of information. The first item is update on the preparedness plans. As you know, in my 5 Bullet Fridays that I've been sharing, we're in the midst of writing our third major plan since April when the pandemic hit. We've done quite a bit of work on the COLP, the Continuity of Learning Plan on steroids. We now have a template that has been shared with us that we can use some information from and complete that by October 1st. What we have to do is submit it to the ESD. They will approve it, and then that plan is shared with the board. And then each month, I assume for the whole year, I will give an update and share attendance numbers with you. That's one of the requirements of that new plan. We have expressed to the state, to MDE, that there's just a lot being asked of schools right now with the third version of the plan, where a lot of the information in the plans can be found other places. So we're submitting a lot of information to the state every year, and a lot of what goes into the plans, they could probably locate other places. But anyway, the gist of the information is at the October board meeting, probably before that, we will be sending you the new COLP, which works in conjunction with the preparedness plan. And you don't have to take action on it, but we do have to update you on it every month. So I just wanted you to have kind of a gist of what's going on with that and what all that means. And the other item B, we are supposed to officially acknowledge that we have a district professional development advisory committee. The district network team, which is basically the district school improvement team, is what helps us put together our professional development every year. So what I'm asking the board to officially do is recognize the district network team as the district professional development advisory committee. And what that does is give us some flexibility with some of the reporting to the state. We actually have to have the district professional development advisory committee named. So that's what I'm asking the board to officially do tonight. That group already does that function. This will just make it official. And those are the two discussion items for tonight.
So this district professional advisory committee, I mean, you just need us to make a motion. When you say acknowledge, what do you mean? What
Just
do you,
need, yep,
take action?
just
What we need to do?
make a motion that Our district network team is the District Professional Development Advisory Committee.
Okay. All right, thank you. So that's all you have for discussion items?
That's all I have for discussion items. Have all
Okay, so
kinds
we'll
of
move
stuff
on
under superintendent items.
Oh, I bet you do. So we'll go right ahead and move on to action items. So under action items, I will need a motion to recognize the Baldwin Community Schools District Network Team is now known as the District Professional Advisory Committee.
Well, they won't be known as that. They will have that function as one of their functions.
They will function. All right, so the Baldwin Community School District Network Team will function as the District Professional Advisory Committee.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
Okay, I'll make the motion or introduce the motion that the district network team will resume or complete the same functions as the District Professional Development Advisory Committee. Is that right?
They will serve that
Sounds
function.
good.
Yes. Yep, that's good.
I'll second.
The motion by Mrs. Williams and second by Mrs. Peasky. Is there any questions or comments to the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried.
Mrs. Washington, you forgot the community communications items or community items?
Thank you, ma'am, because I did not have my agenda up. So here's an opportunity for the community to address the board virtually. If there are any community items, you may type those into the comment section. I see there are no comments. Thank you. Superintendent items?
Still on mute.
One of these days, I'll get this stuff down. Thank you again for being here tonight, and I just want to acknowledge everybody who's worked hard in a totally different environment to do good things for our kids. This has not been easy, and I talked to teachers and administrators and board members in other districts, and this is a crazy time, and you know, I just want to applaud everybody who's working together to do good things for our kids. By no means is what we're doing right now easy. You know, everybody wants to be back in the class with kids. You know, there's no doubt that's where we want to be. Right now, we're watching cases crop up all over the place. There hasn't been necessarily any massive outbreaks yet, but we are hearing of different situations at different places. We're going to watch that. We're gonna be surveying our families again soon to find out what they're thinking. And you know, we tune into the health department every week and get updates and find out where things are in the state. Like you guys, you know, we've never experienced anything like this, and we are thinking in different ways than ever before. So I just want to thank everybody and acknowledge everybody, because it's a different world. I have down that I want to talk a little bit about a legislative update. You know, I know that they supposedly have come to a budget agreement. I haven't read much into that yet. After we were promised no more executive orders a month ago, we've had several more. None crazier than I think it was 180 that came out and you know, put sports back into play. You know, it shocked me. It shocked a lot of people, and you know, it was a very literal reading of the executive order, because when I read it, my question was, what does this really mean? And the MHSAA took care of interpreting that for us, and things are up and running. Student athletes have to have masks on at all times, except for if they're in a swim meet, or if they're running in cross country, they can apparently pull their masks down. We're working through that information a little more. We will probably have all of our students sign another waiver. All the student athletes sign a waiver that they understand, the potential of risk with the current situation. It's interesting. The other thing that I want to talk about is the remote learning plan that we're working on, and we'll put that together and share that. But the thing I really want to talk about is, we have immediate needs with needing better broadband access. But as we go through this, we also have to acknowledge that we do have immediate needs, but we also have long-term needs that we need to consider, because we've got kids who are learning differently than they ever have, and we've got teachers teaching differently than they ever have. And from what I can tell and the feedback I've gotten, it's actually working. So, we now potentially will have some new tools that we can work with. There is a great importance on quality instruction, and we can't forget the importance of quality instruction. And it is happening in remote learning. But as we think long term, beyond the next 6 months or the next year, how do we find a way to get high speed internet to all of our kids? Not try to find not just try to find hotspots where they can get to, but how can we get internet into all of our kids' houses? So last week we met with Connect Michigan, which is a group that really wants to see broadband in rural areas. We've also been working with Casair quite a bit. They are the company that brought the fiber into Lake County last year. We are trying really hard to get a few places. I keep calling it lit up with high speed internet, and we're running into roadblocks. But I think that we were able to find a way to get something to happen south of us, and it's probably going to take a month. We can work through that. But what we have to think about is, what is it going to take to get high speed internet to all of our houses? Because if we have high speed internet at all of our houses, our kids can have their Chromebooks, they can do things at home, we can do different things in school, and they can get different things done at home. And that could be a real game changer. And it's going to take a tower. It's probably going to take a close to 200-foot tower. It's going to take it's not going to be fiber to every house, but it would be something like through the air. I can't even think of the word for it right now, but it would come through the air. And in working with Casair and Connect Michigan, they think that it's possible to do that. So, our next steps are, how do we make this happen? Because it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, that's not the reality of the situation, but we can do some intermittent things to get some broadband in some different areas. But if we want to move on to the next level, it takes thinking really big and determining, yeah, we want to do this. So unless you guys tell me don't go down this road, I'm going to continue to explore what it might look like to work toward a tower, what it might look like to figure out a way to shoot internet into all of our houses. Now, when we talk about that, it would be the internet we would shoot in for the kids would be controlled by our filters and those kind of things. It wouldn't be something that would go in so the family could be streaming Netflix and stuff all day. It would create an opportunity if the families wanted to do that, then that connection could be a lot easier to create. So I don't want to give out the impression that we're gonna do something that isn't good for kids. This would totally be a way to get high speed to our families, because we know, we've talked to different people, and there's just this concern that just because we have a MiFi device or a jetpack, the places that don't have good cell service, those wouldn't work. So, as we've gone through this, the pandemic has forced us to think bigger and try to solve a bigger problem. So, I think there's support out there. I think there's people who would like to help us make this happen. So, that's, Jim Collins talks about that big, hairy, audacious goal, and that's what we have to be thinking about right now if we want to move to that next step in our community. And there's talking to some other folks, they believe that if we create a county that has a lot of that, we already attract people for different reasons, but there's some people who can't come here and work remotely because we don't have that internet. They believe that if we have more internet and more possibilities, that people are going to think about coming. So this is a giant thing to consider, and I wanted to share that and get some thoughts if you have any about that right now.
We'll open the floor for any questions or comments for Mr. Heitmeyer.
Well, for those of us
we used to have.
I was just going to say, for those of us that have lived here for years and have suffered, with having to use hotspots and maybe stealing Wi-Fi from places, I say go for it. I've lived on a street for, all of my life here because I was raised right down the road here. And we just got Cass Air last year. And the hookup came through last year, and we just hooked up to it a couple of months ago, and I love it. So, whatever we can do to, spearhead that campaign, I would be all on board with it. And if you need some property to put your tower up, let me know. I might have some for you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Mr. Brooks, you were going to say something.
Yes, Ms. Washington, thank you. There's been all kinds of technology over the years, especially with television, with Dish Network and some of those other technology avenues. What is it that cell service can't be captured through some type of dish or antenna? Is it not available?
That's what this would be through Cass Air.
Okay.
It would shoot a signal from a tower and go into houses via an antenna or a device like that.
All right. So are you looking perhaps to applying for a grant or something to, the reason I ask that is it should be a no-brainer for our state and our government seeing the situation that we're in. Nobody asked for COVID, and no one asked to be put into this situation. And it looks like it probably won't be the last. There'll be something after this that's going to cause even more problems as far as being remote. A lot of people are retiring early because they can. They do have access to remote technology. Is that something that we can perhaps submit to, I don't know, the state? You know, I mean, seems like you can get an answer pretty quickly, seeing the situation that our schools are in. And we're not the only spot. You know, Lake County's not the only spot that's having this problem. There are probably some areas where whole districts are in dire for better communication and better opportunities to do remote learning. So
as long as the board is not opposed, what we will do is try to figure out how we can do this, what grants might be available, who might want to partner with us, how can we make this happen. But I didn't want to necessarily go down that road if the board was not going to be all for that.
well, we're all in it now. Isn't that what everyone's saying? We're all in it together. So, I mean, we're in it. It's that I wouldn't have any objection. I mean, it's almost something that it should be done or should have been looked at. And I'm not blaming anyone for this. We've got a community foundation here in our local community that probably has tons of opportunity for grants like that. Obviously, we need to find out what technology would be available to us. You've mentioned some pretty good ideas. You know, I have access to land as well, you know, depending on how big of area you need. But we also need to know what's available, what the cost would be, kind of like with our Promise program. You know, we had to count the cost and put everything together. And the people came, I mean, very quickly. Once the announcement was made, we had a cost, the people of Lake County came through. And so I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Okay.
I think the longer we wait, the you know, the further behind we'll get. So I think that's a good idea.
We will continue working on it.
Any other comments or questions? Well, Mr. Heitmeyer, I just want to say thank you for being creative and innovative and really, you know, helping us to be a leader in our community and probably in the region and maybe even in the state, at least northern Michigan or this side of the state with this idea that you proposed, because we are not the only rural community, you know, in Michigan that's faced with this problem. The UP probably has it way worse than we do, but so thankful that we have the community that we have, and I serve the people that we serve with that really are focused on making sure that we're able to meet the needs of students and families. And this is an amazing opportunity to be able to partner with Connect Michigan and Cass Air and then bringing on other partners as we move along. So I would say this will be a green light to continue to investigate and bring more information to us as you learn it, so we can stay abreast of what's going on. So thank you for looking into that and bringing that to us tonight.
Thank you.
And I think also to add to that, Mr. Heitmeyer, you know, our students, not only do we need the technology so that they can communicate with our local school district, but maybe perhaps something that will help them reach out to other places. You know, and I was going to bring this up since we're talking about it. I was going to bring it up during board member comments, but, you know, even things like Khan Academy on our internet. How many parents know about that Mr. Khan has placed so much information on the internet now that self-tutoring is possible even at home, especially the ones who do have access.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my biggest concerns. Even though we may have 100% participation, but because our children don't have access, some learn better with an individual, some can learn by themselves. But it pains me to think of all those who are out there who are helpless. We know that some of the parents can't help their children with the learning. Some of them may not have the educational skills, and others may not have the time. We're still working with parents that had to leave work because their kids are at home. So I think a lot of things can be answered with answers to your questions. So we'll push on.
Thank you. Just to kind of reply to your thought there, I think that remote learning is probably here to stay for some kids, because there are some kids who are flourishing like they never have before. So, we may be going down the road of possibly a school within a school in the not too distant future. When we get back to face, we might have some who are going to be successful remotely. So, those are questions we're going to have to answer soon too.
Yeah, and I think it'll help with some of the discipline issues. It probably will lessen the discipline, and perhaps some of those students who are trouble students, it may help out in the long run as well. So you're absolutely right.
I agree. I totally. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Heitmeyer on the information he presented during his superintendent items? If not, we'll go right into board member items. So I'll just call on people's names as I see them, just to see if anybody has any. So Mrs. Williams, did you have any board member items you wanted to bring up?
Just that I wanted to say thank you to Garth and also to Bruce for the job that they are doing.
You're muted if you, there you go.
Can you hear me? Just wanted to say thank you to Garth and Mr. Mangum, Bruce, for the job that they're doing at the district. Really happy to see those guys. You kind of bring a smile to my face. I don't know why. You just look like two happy people to me. And so I'm really happy that you're there. I hope things go well for you. And if you have questions, reach out and, just continue to keep doing the things that you're doing. I know it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy for a lot of folks, but you guys seem to be handling things pretty well. And I want to just thank you personally. So thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Whose phone number ends in 11? Is that Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Do you have any board member items?
No, I don't.
Okay. Mrs. Peasky, do you have any board member items?
I'm good.
Awesome. And Mr. Brooks, that was you ending in 36, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Robleski, do you have any board member items?
No, thank you. Thanks to everyone, all the staff for all their hard work, like Lisa pointed out.
Ms. Martin, did you have any board member items?
No, just want to appreciate all of the staff for what they're doing. That's it.
Ms. Washington, can I,
Awesome.
just one more
Well, I
thing?
want to ditto all of that. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, just, I was just going to reiterate what Mrs. Williams said. Kudos to the two principals. I'm sure, you know, I mean, it is tough, but, you know, whatever we begin, especially being pioneers, because every school district is pioneering their own programs, and it's new for everyone. It's not something that you can reach to another district or the ESD and get answers for. We're actually pioneers here, so it's going to be difficult at the beginning, but nothing that comes easy is always the best thing. And you know, I think one of the reasons for the smiles on the faces of our principals is there's hope. And you know, when you have to deal with some of the issues that some of our students in this district, you know, firsthand up front, it's very stressful. I know there's still some things there that we have to deal with, but discipline is huge. And when you don't have to necessarily deal with upfront issues like that, and your teachers can teach with all this being new, I think in the long run, I think there's going to be a lot of positives from this. So we ought to look at every opportunity, the things Mr. Heitmeyer talked about, all those things, and just brainstorm how we can make this easy for everyone, because that's my biggest concern. You know, I had a huge concern with being the only district around that did not offer both opportunities. And so, you know, we're going to look at this. We've got a few more weeks at this and see how we can make it the best. And if it works, then it works. If it doesn't, we've got other options. So whatever you guys need that we can do for you, please, you know, if we have to call a special meeting, I'm sure Mrs. Washington would agree, we can do that. But this is a great time, I think, for new learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks, and everyone else who during their time had an opportunity to recognize what's been going on. So I just want to echo and ditto what's already been said. So Mr. Hartmeyer, I just want to continue to thank you for providing leadership and being creative and innovative. And thank you for pulling us all together and reminding us what we do. Bruce and Garth, if you're still there, I just want to thank you for what you do. And please, at your next meeting, please share with your staff how much the Board of Education thanks them and appreciates all that the hard work that they're putting in, and especially to the intervention team in both buildings that are going above and beyond to make sure that we're reaching students and families that are having some issues. So please make sure you share that with your staff. And to my 6 other members I serve with, great night. Thank you for the work that you put in this evening. You know, it pleases me at the end of the day when we've had some tough things to discuss or to work through, just how we seem to get through these things with ease. And I do appreciate your time and appreciate each and every one of you. So if there isn't anything more, we can make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:45.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Support.
The motion by Mr. Brooks and supported by, is that Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Martin, did you get that support?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Motion adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
Meeting
night.
adjourned. Motion carried.